Alright guys, HyDra again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. With Black Ops 6 coming out later this year, there's been lots of rumours going around as to exactly what the game's going to be like and how it is going to play. Kenny from OpTic Texas reveals that he's played the game in the very recent past and believes it's absolutely going to be phenomenal, but there are some features of the game that may well be slightly too overpowered, and that some of the pro players, potentially many of the pro players, will look to gentlemen's agreements some of these situations. What does Shotzzy think about the situation as well? Very much interested in your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. First of all, as Scrappy says, 3 days now until he flies out there to the World Championship to get ready to go to try and go one better, of course, than last year, because Scrappy was in last year's World Championship Grand Final, was not able to get the victory in the end, got, kind of 5-0 slapped around by Kismet in that Grand Finals, and the rest since then is history. Still, though, after that Grand Finals, I know there was talk last year, wow, this Scrappy guy, he's going to be a different player, right? He's talked all this trash, he's, going to be more humble or something. That obviously isn't happened, has it? Like, let's be real. Scrappy's still the same guy that he was, and he's still confident, I'm sure, that he's the best player in the world, and he's going to win this year's World Championship. And it would be quite the feat, actually, for Scrappy if he makes it into back-to-back Champs Grand Finals. I think there's been 3 players ever that have made back-to-back Champs Grand Finals from their first ever appearance in the league, and that's like Karma, and maybe Rambo, and then Simp. I think we saw the numbers on that just the other day. These, though, are the players that have competed the most COD Champs now in a row. Simp is now on here at 6 alongside Cell, Envoy, CleanX, Shotzzy and Drazah at 5, Kenny aBeZy at 7, and then Dashy now is at 8. So, this is always the question with Dashy. You look at this list, basically all of these guys, apart from CleanX, are now world champions, and obviously the case also for Shotzzy back in the 2020 season. Dashy is not yet, but maybe this year is the time to change that around. It's obviously going to be a big one out there in Texas, in front of the OpTic home crowd. Quickly on this, I thought this is interesting from Doug Lee. We always talk about this on the channel sometimes, in terms of the pace of certain players and how different teams are looking. And Doug basically has looked into the numbers, what the KDs are and what the engagement numbers are, depending on the map set. Because you'll find certain players, they look fast or slow, but maybe that team just doesn't play the slow maps like Invasion, and they play all of the fast maps. So that kind of skews the data. So actually, it turns out that Gunless played 27 hardpoints in Minnesota this year, and 66% of those, because he joined towards the end of the year, were either Vista or 6-star, so fast-paced maps. Among the players with 20+ maps played, he'd be 12th in damage per minute. So Gunless wasn't necessarily a massively fast player. Like, if you look at this, if you take out those other maps, he'd be 45th in damage per 10 minutes, or damage per minute, whatever you want to say. So, yeah, just worthy of note, when you look at the Lion Man cards and stuff, there is always another thing to consider in terms of what map set those teams actually like to play, because if a team really likes the slower maps, then even if a player is actually playing at serious pace, he isn't going to necessarily look that way compared to the rest of the league. So just something to have a think about. Turtle actually says this as well. These are some interesting veto stats going into the World Championship here. Subliners have picked Rio Search 1 time. So these are things that are worth knowing if you're playing against them. And I'm sure that Surge, for example, are playing Subliners round 1. They full well know this. And I'm sure that Heretics or FaZe full well know this about Heretics. But interesting that Subliners don't really like Rio Search. We know that to be true, but they've vetoed it 28 times and they've picked it just once, whereas Heretics have never picked Rio Search and have vetoed it 25 times. So that is the widest pick ban gap you will see anywhere in the entire league. But let's talk about the situation for Black Ops 6, right? Because we know that Clay, he's trying to make a return for Black Ops 6. Well, firstly, he's trying to make a return for the Esports World Cup, but whether that happens, where he's going to be, there are some questions on that as it stands. But at the same time, Clay's looking for basically any opportunities that could come out there. Could be inside of playing, could be outside of playing, it depends. But Black Ops 6 is a big talking point. Of course, the OpTic guys were discussing on the Game Chat show and on their kind of individual podcast episodes they've done with Scump over the last few weeks, turning it around, getting to the World Championship and being as competitive as they possibly can. Like, let's be real, at the end of the day, they've gone from first to 12, and if they were to bounce back to first, it would be one of the most impressive things like ever, right? It would be an insane bounce back realistically given, and the potential is still there, but like we didn't really see much of it during Major 4, so it's going to be a mega bounce back. My prediction for OpTic is, top 4, top 3 maybe. I think they'll be better, I think they'll improve, I think, the fans and everything will help. They didn't have that at Major 4, and I think they'll make a bit of a run, but I'm just not sure it's going to be quite enough. But that is a consistent trend with OpTic, so that is in many sense like the obvious prediction, just because it's happened with OpTic many times at this point. But maybe this year is the year to turn things around. As Dashy says, talk is cheap, and there has been lots of talk about Dashy as a player being a better teammate than in previous years. Kenny saying that, yeah, Dashy's basically the perfect teammate now, is absolutely committed to being the best version of himself and the best version that he can get out of the team as well, which is a big talking point. But, if the entire team isn't on board, then there's only so much you can do. So next year's game, though, Black Ops 6, who's going to be good at that game? Well, the top teams will be good. That's always how it is. Doesn't really matter what Call of Duty it's going to be. You put together Simp, aBeZy, a couple of others, they're not going to be bad. You put together, Shotzzy, Dashy, and a couple of others, they're obviously not going to be bad. Same for Scrappy and CleanX, whatever. So yeah, next year's game is coming soon. Lots of anticipation for this, right? Because it's been a long time since we've had any Treyarch game. The last one came out in 2020, which was Black Ops Cold War for the 2021 season. And in the CDL era, probably the best competitive game that we had. Not the best Treyarch game ever, but we know that it was rushed. I mean, it wasn't even meant to come out in 2020. That was meant to be Vanguard, was 2020's game. But Activision said, yeah, Cellium have messed this up big time, guys. You've got to bring your game forward by an entire year. That's what they did. But as a consequence, therefore, Treyarch, as maybe a thank you or whatever, they've been able to create this game and work on whatever they've wanted now for the last several years. So Black Ops 6 is meant to be very polished, I'm sure on the campaign side, I'm sure on the zombie side, but what we're interested in really is the competitive side here on the channel, and Kenny reveals a lot of information here, more so than I expected, to be honest, just because the players often do get to play the game ahead of time. They'll quite rarely talk in as much detail as this about the game, because usually they're not really allowed to, or they're not really meant to, but Kenny don't really care. So he's talking about it and saying, yeah, he played Black Ops 6 early and was talking mainly about the omnidirectional movements. And I think it was fascinating what he had to say on this, that effectively you will feel after playing this that why has this not been the standard for the last 20 years? Like, this is how it should be played. That was his feeling after playing for some time. And I imagine that pro players will probably agree, although there was initially talk about whether they were going to ban it, just because players like Shotzzy, among others, will probably be rather good at abusing stuff like this, as we'll see in a second. But the question is about some of the other things as to whether the pros are going to get rid of those as well.
Well, I wonder, wait, is he going to have a slide cancel?
Claude next.
Now, honestly, I'm glad that stuff got announced. I don't even know if I can speak on it.
I wonder if people are gonna fucking.
I will say I did try got to try the game like a little early, but like it was cool. I will say that like I think all of us will love it, love the Omni movement, because initially it feels weird, because you actually use your whole analog stick, as weird as that sounds. Because I don't think we understand how much you don't use.
We only click it in. We don't actually
like you're using both thumbsticks. I mean, the analogs now like both when you sprint, you only push forward, but now it's like you can move it left.
It's like another layer of like mechanics.
So it's hella cool.
It's gonna take like actually skill to use it, like master it.
It's kind of like when for jetpacks are first introduced, like a dash,
being able to dive. Bro, being able to dive and shoot is actually insane.
Dive and shoot and might be.
You can dive and lay on your back.
It might be
insane movement. I mean, you can slide.
It'll automatically do it. So like, can you go back a little bit? Like, say for example, if you dive into a corner, like if he dives into that corner right there, like by the sandbags, it'll instantly turn his character behind him and like shoot.
Oh my god!
So what I want to know is if you go full speed to the left and full speed forward, is it the same exact speed, but it's just left? It's just okay. So it's only the like.
Bro, I promise you, that's me.
I just wonder what the gun pull up.
I promise you, like you don't feel it. Like when you, I don't know how to explain. Like when you play, it's gonna be initially weird, like doing it. But I promise you, once you get it down, it feels like this is what this is what the game's supposed to be years ago.
That's what it feels like.
It's like, how is this not a thing for years?
Did you dive shoot?
Yeah. Dive shoot was OP.
That shit was OP.
Bro, you could like say if I'm ironing like a hallway and like a guy dives across the like room, he's zapping you. He kills you so fast, like you can't even react to him, because he like that's what we gave them, like told them like you need to nerf it a little bit, because like the dive is so fast from like
it's just a straight camera.
From the outside POV that he's shooting every time he's shooting.
He's getting super cambered.
But like you can dive down a staircase.
That's what I'm worried about.
Imagine diving down the staircase and shooting up the staircase. It's like
that's absurd. That is absurd. Instead of sliding down, it's gonna be fucking.
That's crazy stuff.
I just hope they don't like GA or some shit. Or like, cause it's weird or something. I hope people like
I said, I don't the diving. I can see me and G like diving and shooting. Maybe because if it is the same as it was when we played, it was broken.
Yeah, but there's not even a skill to it. It's just broken.
Omni movement, it should be in. I promise you, everybody's gonna like it.
But the dive shooting is like could be broken.
Yeah. The Omni movement, I'm telling you, it's gonna feel like you're gonna be like, bro, how is this not how we always play the game?
That's fire. That's exciting. Honestly,
Dude,
exciting.
it's just Treyarch, dude. I'm telling you.
They
like,
always make good games, huh?
Nah, yeah, for sure.
and they've had 3-4 years to make this COD. And think about it, the last COD they dropped was Cold War. And when was Cold War dropped? 100 years ago, I think. I'm not even joking.
4 years ago, I think. 3 years ago.
Wasn't Cold War Rush?
So it's not necessarily just this omnidirectional thing. The discussion that Kenny was really having was around the diving, like shooting while diving, basically. Because as you guys can tell here, when you dive, you go quite a long way, right? Like this is, I guess he must be jumping off something, isn't he? Maybe, is he jumping off the ground here? Because this guy goes crazy high. Maybe he's jumping off something, I'm not really sure. But whatever the case is, he's going a long way in this dive, and you can shoot while diving as it stands. And, well, the question is always about cameras, right? We talk about this in COD often, it's been a thing for years, and it's always going to be a problem. Certainly online it's a problem, mainly because if you dive around a corner, you come around the corner on your screen, but it takes some time for the information that you've come around the corner to get to the other guy, right? It's got to go through the server, it's got to go through, the cables under the sea or whatever, to the other guy, it's got to go through his server, to his client, and then to his screen. So that takes a bit of time to accomplish, and therefore, if you do something, he's going to see it a little bit later. To compensate for that, there's something called lag compensation, which changes the position of the character models to better align with what's actually going on, and it's always been a problem that, it's impossible to fully solve, but we've done a good job in games over the last, 20, 30 years of trying to actually figure out a better way to do this. The issue is when you're moving really fast, or your character is doing something that's maybe where your character isn't fully aligns with what the character model is doing, then it creates other issues, right? This is why snaking is a problem, is because often what would happen in Infinite Warfare is that you would be able to see over the cover from your point of view. The other guy wouldn't even be able to see you because what your character model was actually doing and what your character could see weren't quite perfectly aligned. And that's the risk with stuff like this, is that you dive around a corner at full whack and the guy can't really even see you or know fully where you are because you're moving so fast. And okay, that's fine if you can't shoot while you're diving, which is usually the case. Like if you dive around a corner and the guy kills you, even if there's some issues with cameras or whatever, that's fine as long as you can't get shot back. The issue is that if you can dive around a corner and shoot at the guy at like high velocity, then maybe it's fine, as long as it's really well coded into the game, right? And Kenny's feeling is that he's somewhat concerned that it's not going to be absolutely perfect, and maybe the pros are going to decide if it isn't nerfed to straight up gentleman's agreement it. And that was the other real key talking point, wasn't it, of this whole new movement, is that certain pros will want to play COD as it has been played and may decide just to GA it. But the CDL themselves, Spinner Spence, basically said, that is not going to happen, guys. Like, it doesn't matter what you say, we are going to be running with this standard new movement mechanics, right? That's how it's going to be. You're not going to be able to change our mind on that, and I think that's a good thing in general. But something like the diving and the shooting, I guess it's possible for the pros to GA that, because I guess they can just agree between each other, all right, guys, nobody dive, nobody shoot. And the CDL can say, oh, no, you're allowed to. It's in the rules, but if nobody does it, then nobody does it. But you know how it goes with these pros. Nobody does it until Grand Finals Major 1, in which case somebody does it, and then all of a sudden, here we go, the GAs are breaking down once again. But very much interested your thoughts in the comments. Speaking of those OpTic guys, thought this is kind of interesting. Every players from the OpTic guys team, CDL champs KDs. So Shotzzy had a 0.95 last year, 0.86 in Vanguard, 4th with Texas, and then the 2 years before that had a pretty good run, of course. Pred's only played a couple, and this is pretty funny, right, that he came top 6, technically Dashy, with that OGLA team. He literally played one map of Search and Destroy in Piccadilly, and then called it a day. And interesting that Kenny, apart from last year, where he didn't have a great World Championship, and of course Thieves bowed out early, every year apart from that, Kenny's had a really, really good champs, and I think that's something that's worthy of note. Last year, actually, for all of these guys, wasn't great, really, but, if you can get levels that Dashy and Kenny and Shotzzy and even Pred are typically producing at champs, but, of course, it's far easier said than done. But very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.